38 minutes before Jeffrey Epstein was reported dead in 2019, the following post was made on 4chan. Don't ask me how I know, but Epstein died an hour ago from hanging. Cardiac arrest. Screencap this. That post on 4chan is the first post publicly announcing the death of Jeffrey Epstein before all the news media. Somebody inside the jail made that post. By the way, Jeffrey Epstein, the financier and convicted sex offender who, at the time of that post, was awaiting federal trafficking trial when he was found dead in his Manhattan jail cell. The funny little post went up at 8:16 in the morning on August 10th, 2019, and was posted by a user with the auto-generated 4chan handle RPTND1SI, and attached to the post was a pixel art image of Wart from Super Mario Bros. 2. All of it was posted on 4chan's politically incorrect board, Poll. Now, Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell around 6:30 a.m. And the first major news outlet, the Associated Press, reported the death at 8:54 a.m. The 4chan post went up at 8:16, 38 minutes before any news outlet on the planet had the story. In the thread on 4chan, there were 6 posts from the original poster. Posted in those posts was medical handoff language, the kind a paramedic would use when transferring a patient to a hospital, not exactly the kind a guard or a layperson would type. After those 6 posts, the OP of the thread vanished. A second user, Swam8WIF, posted in the same thread that a body double had been swapped in, which is crazy to say. Now, eventually, a Citibank subpoena would reveal the identity of this second user, Swam. It's crazy that banks can have records that can be subpoenaed that will tie your username in. That's pretty wild. The second user was a fellow by the name of Roberto Grijalva, a lieutenant at the prison where Epstein died. The first user, the one who posted the death itself, has never been identified. It's been 7 years almost, 5 federal subpoenas, no name still. What most people don't know is that Epstein had a documented personal relationship with 4chan. He met the founder. He was a lurker. He emailed Peter Thiel, the PayPal co-founder and possible antichrist, about using sites like 4chan to take over modern democracy, which is hilarious. And the board that Epstein's death was first announced publicly on launched within days of a meeting that Epstein took in 2011, a connection that the inventor of 4chan Moot denies, but the timing is very interesting to say the least. In October of 2011, Boris Nikolic, a venture capital advisor who would later be named as a secondary executor of Epstein's will, met Christopher Poole, the 23-year-old anonymous founder of 4chan who went by the handle Moot, at an unknown tech event in New York. Nikolic, for his part, claimed to have no idea why Epstein had named him in the will at all, which I believe that. I've been in so many wills, especially from extremely rich people, guys. Nikolic was also a direct advisor to Bill Gates, and I believe he was aware of that position. From the 2025 release of the Epstein files, we now know that Bill Gates and Epstein had a friendship, a controversial, sexually transmitted, disease-ridden friendship. The drafts that Epstein wrote and never sent were about an STI that Bill Gates allegedly contracted and asked Epstein for antibiotics to surreptitiously dose his wife with. Make of that whatever you will, but the point is that the Gates orbit is what put Nikolic in Epstein's orbit. Gates and Epstein had been friendly since at least 2011, and Nikolic, as Gates' scientific advisor, was in the room for many of those meetings. So, October 20th, 2011, Nikolic emails Epstein about Moot, sharing his Wikipedia page saying he was impressed by what Moot had accomplished at only 23 years of age. October 23rd, Poll is created internally at 4chan. October 24th, Epstein writes back saying he drove Moot home and likes him a lot. November 10th, Poll goes live to users. November 13th, Epstein sets up a meeting with Moot through his assistant. Around the same window, Moot says the board decision came first, but the emails make the timing a bit more confusing and tight. Poll was created on October 23rd, 2011, and Moot has claimed Poll was created to replace New, which was an earlier 4chan board that Moot himself described as a bad stormfront. Stormfront, by the way, if you didn't know, was the long-running neo-Nazi web forum founded in 1995. So and also the name of the Nazi woman from The Boys, which I really liked the latest season, to be honest. I think I just like farts and poop, and there was a lot of farts and poop in it, and gore and stuff. I don't really have media literacy. I just like farts and poop. By the way, POL stood for politically incorrect. And the idea, and Moot's stated reasoning behind its inception, was that if you gave the racists and white nationalists their own board, they'd stop polluting the rest of the site. Basically, you quarantine the bigotry. POL wouldn't be available to users until the following month on November 10th, 2011. POL would quickly be linked to the growing alt-right movement of the time, the loose online coalition of white nationalists and reactionary politics that crystallized around 2016 that still persists up until today. The day following POL's creation, October 24th, 2011, Nikolic and Epstein would have a dialogue once again about Moot. Epstein wrote back to Nikolic, "I like Mama a lot. I drove him home. He is very bright." One thing you might notice from Epstein's emails across the whole 2025 release is that he writes like a psycho. His shit is full of typos, there is no grammar and no real care in what he's actually saying. This will matter though, when we get to the longer emails. Nikolic, anyways, replied to Epstein's email praising Moot. "He is great. He will be a friend. And FYI, he is one of the greatest hackers." So it's pretty clear from this interaction that Epstein and Nikolic and Moot had met at some point between the 20th of October and the 24th. And it is even possible that they had met the very day that Moot had created POL. It's been reported by some that at this meeting, Epstein had told Moot he should have something like POL on the website. That cannot be officially verified, and Moot has explicitly denied any such conversation occurred. But he's hanging out with Epstein, so like, who really cares, to be honest? October 28th, 2011, Nikolic and Epstein continued their discussion of Moot. He included a Washington Post article with the sentence, "The potential for manipulation is huge." The article Nikolic linked described 4chan as a hive mind, and it cites times 4chan had been able to correctly understand and control traffic on the internet in order to breed mass disruptions. Let's take a few examples that come from this general time period. 4chan rigged Mountain Dew's Dub the Dew flavor naming contest, voting "Hitler did nothing wrong" and "Gushing Granny" to the top of the leaderboard. Very impressive. Or the time users manipulated a fan poll deciding which country Justin Bieber would tour in 2010, sending North Korea to the top of the leaderboard. Or probably most famously in 2009 when they manipulated the vote for Times Person of the Year using scripts and bots in a mass effort to name Moot, the founder of 4chan, as the winner of Times Person of the Year. That's crazy. To be clear, this wasn't the only part of the voting that they manipulated. The users were also able to manipulate the following 20 spots to spell out a message to the list viewers. The first letter of every name in the list spelled out marble cake and also the game. The game being the long-running internet joke where if you think about the game, you lose. And marble cake being an old B in-joke from 4chan's most chaotic board. I apologize for anyone who hadn't lost the game in years. Sorry, I just caused a mass loss there. I'm sorry about that. On November 13th, 3 days after POL went live, Jeffrey Epstein would email Leslie Groff, his longtime executive assistant, who was later indicted for her role in the trafficking operation, to tell Moot to come and see him and to bring along anyone he thinks is clever. Moot would confirm to meet Epstein at 3 p.m. on Sunday, January 29th. However, Moot would reach out to Epstein's assistant to say he suffered a loss, the death of a friend, and that he would not be able to attend their meeting. It is unknown what was discussed in their first initial meeting. Nothing has ever been released on what their meetings were about, and nothing of merit has ever come out in regard to it. These two lovebirds would have correspondence one last time in February of 2012. A redacted user would reach out to Moot on Valentine's Day to tell him on behalf of Epstein that Boris and he were free in New York City. Moot would respond 2 weeks later by apologizing for being busy with life and that he would hope to see Boris at TED and Jeffrey in New York. Man, life gets in the way of just big meetups, man. Life just gets in the way when you're cleverly crafting something to a rude modern civilization at its very core. Man, it's tough out here being a eruder. This is the last publicly known correspondence between these parties. While Epstein and Nikolic appeared to have a great deal of interest in Moot and 4chan as a whole, it appears it fizzled out and ended within a 4-month span. Luckily, Moot has gone on record detailing his account of what has occurred. He vehemently claims that the creation of POL had nothing to do with his meeting with Nikolic and Epstein, and after the connection between Moot and Epstein was uncovered, Moot would go on to share his side. He said, Epstein had nothing to do with the introduction of a politics board to 4chan, nor anything else related to the site. The decision to add the board was made weeks beforehand, and the board was added almost 24 hours prior to a first chance encounter at a social event. His assistant reached out to me afterward, and I met with him one more time for an unmemorable lunch meeting. This happened at a time when I was meeting hundreds of people a month while speaking and networking at tech events. I did not meet him again, nor maintain contact. I regret having ever encountered him at all and have deep sympathy for all of his victims. It's a good statement. I believe him, to be honest. And it's pretty clear that Moot's account is at least roughly consistent with the email timeline. The poll board edition does predate his meeting with Epstein by about a day, but his account leaves out the second invitation Epstein extended through Leslie Groff just 3 days after poll went live, and the third one in February. Moot, by the way, has worked at Google since 2016. So he's got my blood, 23andMe. He's probably looking me up right now. He probably said, how'd this Italian guy get so many subscribers on YouTube? Italian guys aren't supposed to get subscribers on YouTube. Look at this. My genetics. Fun fact, I'm 27% English, which is incredibly embarrassing. 11% Scottish, which is sick as the Scottish energy shall never die. 11.5% Scottish, actually. And 7% Irish, which I did not realize. I thought my family was Scottish. 0.2% Welsh. I'm more Italian than I am English, which is an epic win. I'm 31% Italian and 18% Northern German, 5% Swiss, and 0.2% Greek, and then 7% Levantine. I'm a Lebanoid. A part of my family's from Lebanon, guys. My dad is almost 22% Lebanese. How crazy is that? It just seems so crazy. I'm just a white guy. You know, I'm just like a white guy. And like, my dad's Lebanese. I have an incredible deal of respect for Lebanese culture, by the way. I love Lebanon and Greece as well. We grew up more Lebanese than Italian. I didn't even know I was Italian until I got 23andMe. Also, all that's bullshit. I'm American. I was born in America, and specifically Virginia, and now I live in Texas. And I'm more of a Virginian, I feel like, than a Texan, unfortunately. And I love Texas. Don't get me wrong. The people here are incredible, but I won't be here forever. I won't be here forever. I'm gonna move back home to Sicily. I'm gonna move back home to Gloucestershire. Gloucestershire. I love Gloucestershire. No, you don't. By now, we all know about Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who helped Epstein build the sex trafficking network and who is currently serving 20 years in federal prison for it. Federal prison. More like women's summer camp in Texas. What some people may not know is the belief that she ran one of the earliest large Reddit accounts on the platform. A quick primer if you're not really a Reddit person, which I don't blame you. I like Reddit a lot. I've been getting lambasted on there since the very beginning. I went on r/bodybuilding when I was like 15 years old or some shit, or something about building muscle or whatever. And I was like, what's the best way to build muscle? And then they were just like, eat more food, you idiot, you're so fucking stupid. And that's been my experience with Reddit ever since. Asking about my toads, get shit on. Anything, just get shit on, dude. You get shit on Reddit. I don't fit in on Reddit, okay? I'm the most alien on there. But anyways, usernames on Reddit are prefixed with a U/, and topic communities are called subreddits prefixed with an R/. The account in question is U/Maxwell Hill. Maxwell Hill was the first Reddit account to reach 1 million karma. Karma, by the way, is Reddit's points system, which they're points awarded by other users for posts and comments. Like if you say something good and you get an updoot, you can get some karma. To this day, the account still sits at 15.5 million karma. They were the mod, basically an unpaid manager, of r/world news, r/politics, technology, science, environment, Europe, uplifting news, and celebrities. The account is one of the most prolific in all of Reddit history, and from 2006 until 2020, the account posted to Reddit almost every single day. The timeline is very suspicious. On a platform with hundreds of millions of users, user Maxwell Hill was ranked the 8th most active account ever, top decimal percent power user. But gaps in Maxwell Hill's post and comment history correspond with events in Ghislaine's own life. The days that Maxwell Hill didn't post would align with known locations where Ghislaine would have been unable to post, as well as Jewish holidays that she observed. Maxwell Hill's post history confirms their birthday was in late December, after December 21st, Ghislaine's own birthday is Christmas, December 25th. In 2011, Maxwell Hill would hit 1 million karma, the first account in Reddit history to do so, and Matt Honan, then a senior writer at Gizmodo and now an editor of the MIT Technology Review, would write an article on the most viral people on the internet and place Maxwell Hill at the top. After this article was published, the team at Gizmodo would receive an email from Maxwell Hill themselves. One of the most interesting aspects of the article is the author hints that Maxwell Hill could be any gender, any identity, and that we shouldn't just assume Maxwell Hill is a man. Going forward, I'm going to call Maxwell Hill Hill for short, because I don't want to say Maxwell Hill anymore. Across their entire dialogue, an interview done over email revealed virtually no personal details about Hill. They emphasized that Hill could be absolutely anyone, and in this case, could this individual actually be Ghislaine Maxwell with a pretty obvious username? Hill is described as purposefully working to ascend to the upper echelon of Reddit users and history. It was an endeavor. It was actual calculated work that Hill themselves went on to detail. The connections and how they relate to news, and that providers of the news were always going to do better. During this era of Reddit, it was still run by its co-founders with 10 key Redditors consistently on the front page. And also at this time, companies would hire from the top Redditors to build new platforms, treating their knowledge of how information traveled as currency. After many would leave, Hill would work consistently to become #1 on Reddit. Eventually, as subreddits began to emerge and Hill began moderating, they spent increasingly more time on Reddit. They were instrumental in bringing r/world news to one of the top 5 subreddits. At the time of this article, Hill spent roughly 3 to 4 hours a day on Reddit. They were planning on spending less time as they began to start their own business. Now, if this was Ghislaine, then there are some interesting parallels just from here, the way she viewed the news and the dissemination of it. Knowledge is a weapon. Her own father, a media magnate and potential Mossad agent, Robert Maxwell, would have taught her this view, as it's a very important one. Robert Maxwell deserves his own specific deep dive, by the way. I might get killed for it, but we'll see. I don't actually want to die, by the way. I just want to talk about stuff, and some of the stuff probably should be talked about on more normal channels like mine. Maybe not normal. I don't really know, guys. Anyways, got a little some of this, a little some of that right there. How about them apples? What is that, crack? That's that crystal. That's that rock. Come on now. Charlie Sheen said, "You smoke the rock, you turn gay." That's what Charlie Sheen said. I'm trying to find out. Is Charlie Sheen full of shit? Comment down below, my crack rock smokers. I'm wondering what the rest of the day leads for me. Anyways, there is a clear distinction in the view of media providers and those who consume. Hill wanted to be a provider. Not to mention, in 2012, Ghislaine would start the Terramar Project, her ocean conservation nonprofit, which critics later argued was a reputation laundering vehicle and a public-facing identity built right when she needed one. She made it to launder reputation. What a concept, doing something just for your reputation. What the f? I should consider something like that. Now, this is where it gets really insane. Hill's last post went up on July 1st, 2020, and Ghislaine Maxwell was arrested less than 24 hours later on July 2nd, 2020. An anonymous Reddit user posting under the handle UBGNY compiled what's still the canonical version of this theory, a long sourced post laying out the connections between Hill's account and Ghislaine's life. One really good example from the post is there is a distinct lack in posting lining up with the death of Ghislaine's mother. The post is pretty extensive in all the claims that are made. There are hyperlinks throughout the entire thing with screen caps and a follow-up post as well. The post makes a strong case that they are the same person, but potentially the strongest claim is that there is another account that also stopped posting the day before Hill did. This account was called An Utensil. An Utensil was a mod of most of the subs Hill was a moderator of and has a similar writing style. On May 27, 2015, 2 accounts were made on Vote, a now defunct Reddit-style website that became a refuge for users banned from Reddit, under the names Maxwell Hill and An Utensil. Now, of course, haters are going to try to debunk, as they always do. And there are 2 prominent sources that have attempted to debunk this claim. First is a Vice article penned by Jason Kabler, a longtime tech reporter at Vice, titled "Incoherent Conspiracies Suggest Ghislaine Maxwell is a Powerful Redditor." Honestly, good title. Right to the point. One of the first debunking tactics the article attempts to do is to reduce the karma achievements down to fake internet points when it was observed, and we do have on record examples of the early days of Reddit in which these kinds of achievements resulting in high-profile tech jobs. For example, like when I worked at EchoStar in Mount Jackson, Virginia as a compression technician. I got that job because of my Reddit karma. It's pretty obvious in the Vice article that the author is referencing the BGNY post, but they don't really introduce any reason to discount the conclusions in my opinion. They instead frame them as nonsensical and far-fetched, aka, it's a conspiracy theory, why would you believe it? Well, because I've been hitting that rock Charlie Sheen style, and it's got me all wild and crazy. By the way, I'm defending this. I think that Ghislaine Maxwell is one of the most powerful Redditors of all time, and these people they orchestrate the world pretty much. It's kind of my belief in a general sense. Some of the actual evidence that Vice puts forward to discount the theory is that Maxwell Hill's fellow moderators dispute the conspiracy. Vice quotes another well-known moderator, which is great work, saying Hill is just some guy. The mods have reported these conspiracies to admins, but nothing has been removed, even to this day. The mods, citing the admins, say Hill is a Malaysian man whose username comes from Maxwell Hill, which is a real place in Malaysia. It's a colonial area hill station now called Bukit Lerut, which I'm not saying that right. Hill themselves has denied actually ever living there, by the way. Hill never responded back to Vice, and neither have Ghislaine's lawyers or Reddit's spokespeople. So it could be a coincidence, but I'm all in on it. The other debunker is Ben Sheffield, the writer behind the independent blog Coagulopath, which is a really cool name, to be honest with you, but his article ultimately makes the same or similar argument as the Vice article. Sheffield notes that Hill called themselves a married 40-year-old man in a 2010 Redditor of the Day profile, and that fellow mods say Hill lives in Malaysia. But Hill themselves has elsewhere denied living in Malaysia, meaning either the mods are wrong, the 2010 information profile was disinformation, or Hill is just whoever they need to be on any given day. None of that disproves the Ghislaine theory, to be honest. It just means the cover, if it is a cover, isn't airtight. And we know that these are access agents, that these people are involved in intelligence operations. We know that. So that's like what they do, is just lie and make things like it's. Yes, of course, Ghislaine Maxwell denies that she's Ghislaine Maxwell and a part of a sex trafficking operation, and also the orchestrator of a massive access operation to get blackmail on all the powerful people in the world. Of course they deny that. And if they don't deny it, they just die magically in a jail cell. So probably one of the strongest claims Sheffield makes is how Ghislaine has gone on record claiming to be Trump's friend, but Hill was notorious for posting anti-Trump content. Hill had Trump derangement syndrome. And Sheffield makes a point of mocking the theorists in that this would just be disinformation. Could be that someone obsessed with karma would post something they know would generate karma, is what I would say, but maybe that's not likely. Nevertheless, the debunking of this theory from both Vice and Sheffield is pretty much just a means to make fun of those who believe in the theory, conspiracy theorists, which is, it's pretty common. I mean, it is fun to make fun of people who believe things that are insane. And unfortunately though, over time, man, it's just like, everything is becoming like more and more real. And it's really a shame, because I would consider myself a skeptical person, and now I'm not really that skeptical about much stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I could see that. I don't believe it just because the government says it's not true. You know, I'm not that dumb, okay? And I do like making fun of that. Like, for example, flat earth stuff. If you study ballistics in any way, you will find that the earth is round. And there's also just the hilarious experiments that prove, I don't know, the flat earth thing, that's one of the ones where I'm on board with just immediately making fun of those people, because it is really dumb. But we know that Ghislaine Maxwell and we know that Epstein are bad and evil and have orchestrated lots of stuff, and that the government is doing its absolute best to cover it up in any way that they possibly can. Why am I drinking this when I could be drinking this? All right, guys, come on now. It's a Sour Boys Echelon Twilight Fusion energy drink, 200 milligrams caffeine, available at sour.gg with Twilight Fusion gummies. Same exact flavors, same exact level of deliciousness. This is my favorite flavor. It's got vanilla in it. It's not super sour, but it's really good. Together, they're succulent. I absolutely love Echelon, by the way. Their hydration, their performance. I'm usually more of a hydration guy with 100 milligrams of caffeine, but the 200 is absolutely delicious with the Twilight Fusion flavor blend. Not to mention the company is awesome and run by really cool people. Seriously, if you guys want to support this, if you want to see more content like this, go to sour.gg and buy some candy. We're actually trying to turn a profit now. We haven't made any money since we actually, I think in 2024, our black was $250,000. And then 2025, we lost almost $1 million. And then 2026, we're so far breaking even. And that's because we've been reformulating things and we've been preparing for a scale, essentially. Because we want a really big, awesome candy company. We haven't taken any capital. We have 0 investors. It's myself, my wife, my childhood best friends. Right now, my mom's doing customer service. She probably won't be forever because we're growing and she's gonna get overwhelmed. My sister handles logistics and some stuff with marketing, and it's so cool. If you guys wanna support what we're doing here, whether it's my wife or myself, go to sour.gg and buy some candy for yourself and your friends. It's totally worth it. It's vegan candy, no gelatin, it's gluten-free. We release 4 new flavors every single month. We don't use artificial or synthetic dyes. All of our flavors are from natural sources. It is the best candy if you like sour stuff. The reviews and the customer feedback speaks for itself. I am incredibly grateful for how far you guys have allowed this business to come and my YouTube channel. Every single day, I cannot believe that I am able to do this. So I appreciate that. If you wanna support it, go to sour.gg and hit subscribe on this video or whatever. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do any of those things if you don't want. BGNY would include a follow-up post showing that comments pertaining to some of Hill's more controversial takes were being actively deleted. There's no reason to tiptoe around it completely. Users from Poll were archiving Hill's profile and every mention of pedophilia and ephebophilia, the technical term for attraction to mid to late teens, on their profile. It's a very clear distinction if you're a pedophile. Actually, that's an ephebophile, dude. Okay. From this archiving, they were able to ascertain parts of Hill's accounts were being deleted in real time as they archived the account. And as of 2026, the remaining entirety of the account has been documented. People responding to old comments of Hill's were also being actively deleted. Epstein was a bit of a weird guy outside of being one of the most prolific pedophile sex traffickers to ever exist in modern times. On his computer, he sent at least one 4chan link to a girlfriend. Whether he actually posted is undocumented, but he is a confirmed lurker. And the fact that there were enough everyday users just browsing Poll V or B even, not knowing that they might be arguing with Jeffrey Epstein or calling him slurs as they argue over Mountain Dew flavors or some bullshit like that. I think that's something that none of us are really ready to consider. Probably one of the most ridiculous things shared in the files was when Epstein emailed one of his girlfriends a 4chan link with animated Rule 34 content. If you don't know what that is, God bless you. This Rule 34 content was from the children's horror video game franchise, Five Nights at Freddy's. And the idea that Jeffrey Epstein would take a child's video game and find something sexual between the characters interesting is not shocking even in the slightest. And while we all consider Epstein a monster, perhaps we should also consider the concept that he's a loser too. I mean, we're building a pretty good case. The way he writes his messages, the whole 4chan lurker thing, it's possible to be an incredibly prolific access agent, an asset for multiple intelligence agencies around the world, and simultaneously be a loser. Epstein himself did have a fascination and belief in an alt-right takeover as well. In a 2018 email exchange with Peter Thiel, Epstein wrote, when Thiel wrote back asking what he meant, Epstein replied, counter to globalization. Amazing alliances. You see, it was through social media that Epstein believed alt-right thought would spread, and he was correct. And Nikolic, our friend of the show, and from the beginning of this video, was very likely aware of Epstein's belief in spreading alt-right thought and considered his observations of 4chan as a potential place to spread this ideology. Outside of 4chan, he also had a fascination with other online spaces, particularly within video game communities. He had an Xbox Live profile, which was banned in 2013 due to his status as being a registered sex offender. That you just get banned on Xbox Live for that. It's pretty much it. It's pretty hard to get banned on Xbox Live. Believe me, I tried a lot. I'm just kidding. I was a good guy on Xbox Live when I was a little kid. I was afraid when people said that they were like in the FBI and their dad owned Walmart and stuff. I believed them. I was like, I'm not messing with that. Get that off me. Don't put that on me, Ricky Bobby, is what I said, probably, because I love that movie. Jared Holt, a senior researcher at Open Measures, which is an extremism research nonprofit, didn't realize that was a thing, is skeptical that Epstein directly influenced the creation of Poll, as some people online might have suggested, like me just now, for example. But the link between Bannon and the ideology of the website, in my opinion, is impossible to ignore. I mean, it seems very clear. Epstein repeatedly talked about hating Trump and all this stuff, but is allied with Bannon and is like trying to grow it's really bizarre. Additionally, at this point in time, many people did want to meet Moot due to his rising star status in the tech space. But interestingly enough, an article from The Verge surmised one of the reasons for this fame was Time magazine's poll that named him world's most influential person. Same poll 4chan users had manipulated. One of Epstein's main accounts he spent the most time on was for World of Warcraft, which is crazy. And according to the files, that's how he first came into contact with Trump's strategist Steve Bannon years before Bannon entered politics. And their documented correspondence picks up later after Bannon left the White House in 2017 and he started filming that really weird puff piece that we have footage of now, where he's just like sitting, he's talking about he's just sitting there, he's so hard to listen to and look at. He's so ugly, dude.
So Santa Fe Institute in the late 80s, early 90s, I was interested, I was on the board of Rockefeller.
Bannon originally began as the CEO of Internet Gaming Entertainment, which is hilarious. Bannon's company would hire Chinese low-wage workers to grind the virtual currency gold in World of Warcraft. How the is this real? Then again, he does look like he plays World of Warcraft. Am I right, fellow Halo Chads? We don't play World of Warcraft. We get disappointed all the time by the pieces of shit that these devs keep releasing. Sitting in a $2,000 chair. I got it for my birthday a couple years ago. Okay, guys, I love Halo. Anyways, back to the video. The company was a massive success somehow and would amass $60 million. One of Bannon's IGE co-founders, Brock Pierce, former Disney child actor, later a major crypto investor, would also help Epstein break into crypto. Bannon himself said most famously in a 2017 BuzzFeed interview that IGE is where he realized anonymous online communities were full of young, disaffected men he could organize for right-wing causes, which we've definitely witnessed happen, for sure. I mean, that's been a thing. Regardless of right-wing or left-wing, it's happened on both sides. The disaffected are dangerous. Bannon's next endeavor was Breitbart, the conservative news site he turned into the mouthpiece of the alt-right during the first bigly Trump administration campaign. I'm not really sure what the Trump train. Bannon kept his finger on the pulse of online spaces, still seeing them as viable and full of potential. He wanted to forge a connection between the kind of disaffected men who browsed aboard like Poll and right-wing politics. In his attempt to bridge the gap, he hired Milo Yiannopoulos, a flamboyant Charlie Sheen-style gay man, British provocateur who built a following baiting feminists and progressives online. He hired him to be his main correspondent in the tech and online space, which is, that guy is a provocateur. The likes of which, I mean, is he still around? I really don't know. I haven't seen him in a long time. He was like 2017, 2016, 18 era. That shit was crazy. That was a different time. Milo's initial focus was Gamergate, and Gamergate needs some explaining. In 2014, an ex-boyfriend wrote a long blog post about his indie developer ex, Zoe Quinn, alleging that she'd traded sexual favors for positive reviews of her games from games journalists. The post detonated into a months-long harassment campaign aimed at Quinn and the women who defended her, doxing them, swatting them, and so on. And worse, most of it was organized out of 4chan. Also Twitter, by the way. Twitter as well. But Milo found that energy and learned how to sort of point it and galvanize it into something very useful. Milo would later resign from Breitbart in 2017 after a 2016 podcast clip from Drunken Peasants in which he defended sexual relationships between 13-year-old boys and adult men.
You are advocating for cross-generational relationships here. Can we be honest about that?
Yeah, I don't mind admitting that.
Framing it as a personal experience defense based on his own abuse as a 13-year-old boy by a priest.
This arbitrary and oppressive idea of consent, some of those relationships between younger boys and older men, the sort of coming-of-age relationships, the relationships in which those older men help those young boys to discover who they are.
It sounds
yeah, well,
like,
you know what?
It sounds like Catholic priest molestation to me.
And you know what? I'm grateful for Father Michael. I wouldn't give nearly such good head if it wasn't for him.
By the way, I think Milo Yiannopoulos is no longer gay. and he's Catholic instead. So you can choose. You can either be gay or you can be Catholic. I'm neither. It was very bad, very odd, very strange, creepy, weird, up, stupid thing to say, and just disgusting and degenerate type behavior, really, in all honesty. But Bannon sort of created the pipeline that Nikolic told Epstein was there, and from Poll to Breitbart to the 2016 Trump presidency, and now to Israel. It was after the Trump presidency that Epstein and Bannon began a correspondence, and this correspondence would continue leading up to the very day that Epstein was arrested. From the DOJ files, we know that Epstein and Bannon primarily discussed cryptocurrency and how to weaponize Epstein's wealth to fund right-wing ideology. They would often brainstorm on ways to fund right-leaning coalitions through cryptocurrency, and through this, they funded far-right European political movements outside of America, some in Germany, some in France, some in Hungary. It was the new continental hard right, all right, guys? And they had the explicit goal with this venture to stave off Time's Up for the next decade plus. Time's Up being the post-Weinstein anti-sexual harassment movement that took down tons of powerful men in 2017 and 2018. Bannon was one of Epstein's last planned meetings he had to cancel before being detained. Epstein also was helping Bannon portray Trump issues on the world stage as someone who was his friend for so long. Somehow, Epstein and Bannon shared some white supremacist views as well. Epstein was trying to meet with Charles Murray, a debunked racist scientist, for his work on the race science book, The Bell Curve. Epstein was even drawn to concepts of climate-driven population calling. Epstein was into breeding. There's the whole conspiracy at Zorro Ranch. I have an entire video on that. It's really dark and especially bizarre coming from a Jewish person. It's strange. I'm not Jewish. He's Jewish. I'm Italian. And while Epstein's official link to 4chan explicitly ends at the meetings with Moot, there is still an undercurrent of fascination for him in the forums. He lurked. He probably posted, let's be real, and he would link with people like Bannon who saw the potential of these spaces and held the ideas to potentially weaponize them. So a basic chain. Poll gave most of Gamergate its organizing space in 2014. Gamergate gave the alt-right its first taste of mass online harassment as political action. That energy fed Pizzagate, which is a way more compelling sort of gate incident. If you don't know, it's the 2016 conspiracy theory that a DC pizza shop fronted a child sex trafficking ring run by Democrats only. That's kind of where it trails off for me, which in turn seeded QAnon, which is the widespread, sprawling, if you will, conspiracy movement starting in 2017 that claimed Donald Trump was secretly fighting a cabal of elite pedophiles. By the way, they are the cabal of elite. I guess you write what you know. I don't really know. It's really interesting though. There isn't a good or bad guy. It's just they're just the bad guys. It's just the bad guys. Those people they're just the bad guys. Unfortunately, I love America. I love my countrymen. Fuck my government, to be honest. And smash like on this video and hit subscribe for the next one. I'm in Tel Aviv and I'm Oompaville's greatest fan. The QAnon part, very interesting to me because a lot of the people that I grew up around, not really the people that I grew up with, they're a little quicker to catch on, but a lot of the people that I grew up around were very much into QAnon, and their intentions were not, I don't like minorities, or I'm a bigot. It's like, there's an evil cabal, and they're hurting children, and they're trying to ruin our cities and culture or whatever, and they're doing this all to enrich a very small group of people. That's what it seemed like they believed to me, but it's very ironic because QAnon, the believers, who some of which were just terrified of what harm was being done to children, which is a noble cause in my opinion, they didn't realize the space that they were congregating on may have been conceived by the man who exemplified their fears the most. And he's kind of the representation of that now. That is, unfortunately, the MAGA movement and Trump. Now there's aliens. Who cares about Epstein, dude? And if you care about Epstein, guess what? You're gonna get your congressional seat bought. Literally bought. Don't get me even started, self, about that. We can't talk about politics. You can buy a congressional seat in the United States of America. Did you know that? Did you know that? That makes me so angry, dude. I feel a literal, I have goosebumps right now. I am so angry, genuinely angry. Not at anything political necessarily, but at the idea of what I believe and love America to be being just molested by the government as it is right now. And it has been, by the way, by every government since the shooting of JFK, essentially, and even before that. I mean, basically post-World War II, pretty much, is the end of the dream that existed for a fleeting amount of time. It is like, and I don't know. Anyways, that's another video maybe. That's gonna be a dark one, bro. You're gonna see me hanging from the ceiling with a really short rope. That's how it's gonna end. Just my legs. Sorry, I shouldn't do that. 4chan and Reddit, on the other hand, are two spaces where the user bases essentially hate one another. And if you don't know this, good, stay that way. Just watch this video and move on. Two less internet savvy people, they may look very similar, but their ideologies are very different, all right? 4chan strives for true anonymity, while Reddit allows for some history and archiving based around a username. Things on 4chan are only archived when someone seeks out to do so. There's virtually no moderation on 4chan, and moderation is very heavy on Reddit. And while Reddit has its darkness, okay guys, there's some dark shit on Reddit. There's some Chungus type shit on Reddit. Reddit is not defined by the darkness. 4chan is defined by the darkness. 4chan is Epstein, Reddit is Ghislaine. There we go. The more controlled, more archived platform tracks to Ghislaine, and the chaotic, anonymous one tracks to Epstein. Ghislaine was the orchestrator of the crimes. She kept the records. She did most of the heavy lifting. She's still alive as well. She cared about the functions of what happened, and Epstein was chaotic. He didn't care. He wrote in all lowercase. He didn't care about the specifics or his actions. He just wanted to be a piece of shit. So if Maxwell Hill was Ghislaine's account, it fits behavior-wise for what we can see from the Epstein files. Ghislaine was a try-hard Redditor, and Epstein was a loser 4chan chud. Pretty cool. And while the link between Nicholas Epstein and Moot was in fact there, it does not mean that he was an orchestrator of these events. More than Nicholas was aware that these topics would have been of great interest to Epstein. I still don't buy that Nicholas just was like, I don't even know why you're in the executor as well, dude. That's just crazy. What the dude? Also, I have no idea where this came from. What's this thing, dude? What the is this, bro? Who the fuck has a rat, dude, with like an animatronic thing or something? His name's Professor Zolk? That's the weirdest. It is weird as Anyways, Epstein was also interested in talking to left-leaning people as well. It's just during the time there was a big wave, and those people are just interested in waves and trends and who's about to take power, and that, you know, they're on top of the world, literally. So if Hill was Ghislaine, then they were operating in both right and left-leaning spaces. Epstein himself admitted in the files that he was interested in tribalism, or turning people against one another. He was an opportunist, someone who seeks to take power and utilize it in any form or capacity for their own gain, his own gain. Perhaps there's more information in the Epstein files that will, I don't know, be more informal. I don't know, guys, and it teaches more about this. I don't know. There's a lot more information. The files still haven't been released. It's still ridiculous and unacceptable, but what are you gonna do? Bitch and moan? Yeah, pretty much. It's about all you can do, unfortunately. There's also more than one mysterious 4chan post in the Epstein orbit. On July 1st, 2020 at 8:05 p.m., a 4chan user went on the creepy conspiracy and supernatural board of 4chan. It's called X. The user would detail their job and who they worked for. They worked for Jeffrey Epstein. The entire story devolves into absolutely heinous acts, most of which, if I explained, would get this video completely demonetized. And it describes first working for Epstein in New York City and eventually being moved to the island and the depraved things this person would see, and then aid in cleaning and covering these things up. Then on July 21st, 2020, a smaller YouTuber named Mark Antony would use text-to-speech to post the contents of the story onto YouTube. It amassed around 6,000 views at the time of recording, and then we found in the Epstein files, when they emerged, that the story and transcripts of the video were used and investigated by the FBI. The FBI at some point believed something within this video and story might be true and worth investigating. They saw it as a lead. They specifically noted that the user was claiming that they were a threat to themselves, but nothing public has ever really come out of the investigation, and the poster was never identified, and the claims were never substantiated, and the file, if there is one, has not fully been released. That is obviously worth keeping in mind for what comes next, because the death post on Poll isn't the only time a 4chan user surfaced inside knowledge about Epstein that the FBI couldn't trace back. And this is not ancient history. As recently as April 2025, 4chan was hacked by a rival website, Soyjack Party, in which emails that surfaced in the leak showed a proliferation of bots, FBI.gov emails, and university and work emails. The .gov screenshots in particular have never been independently verified. The crypto and tech news site flagged them as likely fabricated, and there's a real chance that they were planted in the leak as a prank, you know, for trolling trolls, I guess, because it looks bad. Personally, I do think the broader leak is real, but you gotta take the really crazy stuff with a grain of salt always. But man, ooh, woo! The fallout from the leak is pretty large, and the website was down for nearly 2 weeks, and mods and janitors would be doxxed from the fallout. And what wasn't actually surprising, if you were aware of 4chan's history, is the FBI email. So take the Agents of Chaos thing with a grain of salt, obviously, but what's true is the FBI has had agents monitoring 4chan and every other internet social media platform for years for terror threats, school shooter plots, child exploitation networks, and so on. You know, doing their jobs. Their presence on the site is not a secret. And given the amount of domestic and foreign terror shootings and even potential serial killers that have surfaced on or around 4chan, it is not a shock that someone from the Federal Bureau of Investigation might be watching certain boards or so on and so forth, especially if they were aware of the tie to Epstein and the site as a whole. So, Federal Bureau of Investigation agents or Federal Bureau of Causing Chaos agents exposed? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. What's real, what's not real? I don't know. I know the FBI doesn't do their job now, unfortunately. Epstein would die in the early hours of August 10th, 2019. He was found unresponsive in his cell around 6:30 a.m. and the user RPTND1SI, the OP, made his first post at 8:16 a.m. Eastern Standard. And in that post, he kept it very brief. Epstein died of a cardiac arrest as a result of hanging. OP would make 5 more comments in the entirety of the thread. The first reply in the thread came from another anonymous user calling OP's claim fake. OP responded describing how the death was declared and a non-specific medical resuscitation attempt. This is all very important. His next response was to someone asking how he knew. He responded, "I just know," and then correctly stated where they pronounced Epstein's death. When asked if he had proof and if OP was just wasting time, he simply responded with, "Screencap death." And his very last message, nearly 35 minutes after posting, was going into extensive detail with medical jargon of what was done to Epstein to attempt resuscitation. And to the average person, like me, it may look as though this person knows what they're talking about, but there's language here that's pretty interesting. This is pretty specifically the language of a paramedic to ER handoff, which means OP probably wasn't a guard or a random. OP was probably a medic, or someone who heard a medic in the minutes after Epstein was pronounced DAID. I would say he hung himself, and then they tried to bring him back to life using magic or something. And after saying all this, he just never returned to the thread. Then we have Swam again, the other user, the second user. They made the claim that the real Epstein had been wheeled out and that there was a body double that they were going to use to masquerade as the true Jeffrey Epstein and fake his death. This user would make the singular comment and reply to the entire thread, and after, he also would not respond to this thread. The FBI immediately subpoenaed 4chan and a variety of mobile carriers in an attempt to identify who made these posts, but after being told by 4chan, AT&T, and T-Mobile that they could not aid in finding out who made these posts, it was a dead end. Then came the Citibank subpoena, which did surface Swam's name, Roberto Grijalva. He was a lieutenant at the prison where Epstein died, and the records don't explicitly confirm that he was the poster, but they're the cleanest available match. It's not a confession or anything like that. So despite the link, he could not be tied to any of the other posts, only the very strange body double claim. That just seems like something someone trolling would say, not someone actually there who witnessed it. So 13 minutes after the original Epstein death post, major publications started breaking the story that Epstein was in fact dead. So how did this user know? Where did they go? And how did they have that knowledge that would later be confirmed very shortly after? Was this actually an insider or just somebody who got really lucky shit posting? Or was it Epstein himself? Just kidding, it wasn't Epstein. I do like the theory that he's in Israel though. That shit's very funny. So we still don't know who OP was. Okay guys, there were 2 correctional officers on duty in Epstein's cell block that night, Tova Noel and Michael Thomas. They were charged with falsifying their bed check logs. They claimed to have done 30-minute checks that they did not actually do. The charges were later dropped under a deferred prosecution agreement, and there's widespread speculation that prosecutors also tried to link them to the 4chan post, but the public charging documents are about the bed check logs, not the post specifically. The 4chan angle definitely lines up with timing, but no reporting confirms if it was a part of the actual case against them. And on top of that, none of the speculation has been confirmed, and any additional probes into the 4chan post have not produced anything fruitful. Perhaps the reason they were never able to identify the OP was because they were looking at guards, when the language pattern points to a paramedic. So take that however you want, FBI or whatever. With all that being said, Epstein may be dead, but he's still lurking on 4chan for show, all right? They are making fun of that guy a lot. They really don't like that guy. Shit, he lives on everywhere. He's lurker. Guy's a lurker. He doesn't really talk much. He's kind of quiet and ugly and shy and evil and stuff. He died. Anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. See you in the next ones.